We are broadcasting live.
Councillor Davy extends regrets that she cannot attend today, so that is with notice. Emergency exits are in the rear of the council chamber through the meeting room, and members are free to disclose pecuniary interest at this point or at any point in the course of the meeting. We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Mono resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Tiatante, Attawaddaron, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples. We also acknowledge that the town of Mono resides within the treaty lands named under Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase of 1818. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich indigenous history and traditions. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous people with this land, its waterways and resources. I have a motion that Council approves the agenda of Session 17, 2023 as circulated. Councillor Capes moves, Deputy Mayor Nix seconds. Any opposed? And that motion is carried. I have a further motion that Council approves the minutes of Session 16-2023 as circulated. Do I have a mover? Councillor Magdalow, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Any opposed? And that motion is carried. We have a couple of proclamations today. National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, whereas September 30th is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, when we recognize the ongoing trauma caused by residential and day schools and remember those who never returned home, survivors and their families. It is also an opportunity to commit to the process of truth, reconciliation, and justice with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. And whereas this holiday was proposed in 2015 by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, which under Action 18 called upon the federal government in collaboration with Indigenous peoples to establish a statutory holiday to honor survivors, their families, and communities and ensure that the public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process. And whereas reconciliation is the responsibility of every Canadian, it means acknowledging the past and ensuring history never repeats itself by respecting Indigenous treaties and rights and letting go of negative perceptions and stereotypes to work towards solidarity. Therefore, on behalf of Council, I do hereby proclaim September 30th, 2023 as a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation in the town of Mono, and that's dated today's date. Second proclamation today honors the great work that is done by Big Brothers and Sisters, whereas many young people find themselves in vulnerable situations and facing adversities such as mental health issues, family violence, identity issues, or poor living conditions, which put these youth at risk of not reaching their full potential. And whereas the guidance and support of a mentor, these risks can be avoided, and these young people can gain the confidence to achieve more, higher incomes, happier lives, more contributions to their community. And whereas Big Brothers, Big Sisters, mentors advise and challenges these young people, act as their champions, provide greater consistency to their lives, connect them to a broader experiences, opportunities and networks and provide safe, non-judgmental environments in which the child or youth can confide anything. Now, on behalf of Council, I do hereby complain September 2023 as Big Brothers Big Sisters Month in the town of Mono, and that's dated today's date. Fred.
Yeah, I'd just like to add something to this point. This is our second year or third year, Kim. The town of Mono will be bringing 20 Big Brothers Big Sisters out for our Halloween party.
Terrific. That was a great success last time. Thank you. And before I get into question period, I'd like to welcome and congratulate Mike Dunmore on your first meeting as CAO.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public question period. Mr. Simpson, do we have anything in writing?
Your Worship, there were no questions submitted online in advance for the sake today.
Thank you. And I rather suspect we have some in the audience today. Anyone would like to address us?
Lori Hatter.
Lori, can you come forward and...
Well, I think everybody can let they hear me from here.
We are broadcasting online, so we do ask that you use a microphone. Okay, you can use one of the desk ones, they're turned on.
Welcome, Mayor Emeritus.
Lori? Yeah, turn this on.
The one on the desk works, Lori.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Lori Haddock. I'm here regarding your motion for the real estate signs. John, are you going to, when you put it on the table, are you going to open it to the audience?
I'm
To comment today?
I'm happy to have comments now or when the matter is on the floor. I should indicate that you and I talked before the meeting, and
Yeah.
I undertook to suggest to Council that it be a first reading only so that we can seek input of the real estate industry as well as residents of Mono. So it's not a done deal. I think we're open to suggestions and amendments, but it is an ongoing concern to us, and we have for the past couple of months made quite strenuous efforts to get some of these signs taken down. And these are the ones that have been left up for years.
And I totally get that. And
yeah.
I agree there has to be some regulations, but if you're going to open it to the public when you bring the motion forward, I'm gladly make my comments.
With the
Then.
indulgence of Council, I think that might be appropriate, but we're going to have to keep the debate
Yeah.
somewhat limited because we are opening it up to a period of consultation post first reading.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Any questions of Council on any other issues? Thank you. We haven't yet reached 9:15, but is our delegation for the Hockley Historic Community Hall and Church here, I believe you are. Would you like to approach and we'll entertain you as a delegation? And if you could just give us your name and your address.
Thank you, Mayor Creelman. My name's Tom Darlow. I'm a director at the Hockley Historic Community Hall, and I'm here to talk about the Hockley Historic Community Hall in the village of Hockley. Myself, I reside in Hockley Valley there on Hockley Road. Is the presentation going to go up? Let's see if this works. I just press the arrow to go to the next slide, or?
You can use the arrow key, you can use the mouse and click on.
Oh, I see.
Should indicate Council does have a copy of your presentation as well.
Thank you. I'm not really sure what button I'm supposed to hit to go to next.
Okay. Andrew, do you want to advance that slide for us, please?
Thank you. Okay, perfect. Sorry, technical issues. I guess first of all, I'd like to thank the Mayor and Council there for taking this time there to hear our delegation. The Hockley Historic Community Hall and Church have been around for a few years now. Our facility is much longer. The Hockley Historic Community Hall and Church was incorporated through the Ontario Historical Society in 2018. Both the community hall and the church were conveyed to the Hockley Historic Community Hall and Church by the Hockley District Seniors Club and the United Church of Canada there when the church ceased to exist.
Can I suggest you paraphrase so that we can, we've all read your presentation, and if you could just paraphrase, and we'll have more time for questions and answers.
Yeah, absolutely. So the facility itself there, our group ourselves there, we have charitable status there, and we've been meeting and we've been doing events for the community there for going on 5 years now. Go to the next slide. There we go. Overall, our organization's goal and mandate is to protect the facilities, so both the old church as well as the community hall, and ensure that the facilities are there and to be used for the community going forward. The facilities themselves are located in a very unique location there. We're actually right on the border of the town of Mono as well as Adjala, but we're very much on the Mono side of the two communities. With that, we see ourselves as not just providing a place for the town of Mono there, but also for Adjala to meet, as well as bring our communities together. We've got many events that we do throughout the year. Our signature event is our pancake breakfast that we hold in June. That one there, we had well over 100 people come this year. It's our major fundraising event for the year, but we also have other events. We've got dinners we put on. We do Christmas events, as well as meet various times throughout the year. I've got most of my board here, but I won't introduce each one of them there. As I said, I'm the director, and John Early is our president, as well as the rest of our board of directors that are here to support me today. I talked a little bit about some of the events that we have, the pancake breakfast. Our biggest, I would say, day in, day out thing that we do is we provide the facilities there for rentals for the community. We've got various things that have happened in the past. Through COVID there, everything got shut down. So prior to it there, we had lots of yoga and different types of events like that, as well as wedding showers, weddings, as birthday parties, so on and so forth. I will say now that we're kind of post that time there, it's taken a little bit of time, but our rentals are increasing, and with that, with our workload as well. We have partnered with other community groups. Our long-term goal through all these events is to, one, showcase these facilities, and second, make sure that they continue being a place for our community to meet. Through those events, and rentals there, that's how we fund ourselves. Some of our major ways we get money to support the organization as well as the facilities are there. Our largest one though is our regular rentals. That would be our biggest revenue flow. And then we have various other things, including donations there. We've been lucky to get from both the town of Mono, Adjala, as well as Dufferin County. Our major costs are, in order for most of Lease there, is insurance is number one, and then the cost to keep the place warm and the lights on would be our second, and then obviously ongoing repairs and maintenance for the facilities. So I guess the big question is, why am I here today, and why is the board here today? We found as a board the amount of time that it takes to keep these facilities in good working shape is extensive. The type of work we do, I think, is becoming more and more unique. These community halls and providing and dealing with rentals and fundraisers and so on is just taking an enormous amount of time. And we're finding all of us as a board have been now we're the original board for the group there, and we're finding that the volunteer hours that it's taking for us to continue operating these facilities and making sure that they stay in good shape is just becoming too much. And we feel as a board that it's unlikely or possibly unlikely there to find somebody else there going forward there that's going to be able to continue this huge amount of volunteer time there that it takes. From there, we as a board have been discussing the potential to look at conveying both properties, or the one property, because they're now one property, to the town of Mono, and work with the town of Mono there in some sort of partnership agreement there to continue supporting these facilities and ensuring that these facilities are part of our community for another 150 and 125 years, respectively, for the age of the two facilities. A little more information on the municipal support and the type of work that we do. We see that these facilities we think they're gems in the community. Obviously, they have a historical significance. They're the only meeting area there on that side of the town of Mono. And as an organization, we feel that it's not as common now for groups to take ownership and operate community halls. Municipalities are now much more in the business of community halls, meeting spaces, and so on, as it was 100 years ago there, when you had religious organizations and seniors clubs and so on there that had the time and had the responsibility to maintain and provide these meeting spaces. As a group there, we're here today there to have a discussion with council there and staff and find out what is possible there to get more support for the organization so that we can ensure that these buildings stay within the community. One thing we're not here for is financial, which is maybe rare, I don't know. As I said, the town of Mono and as well as other governments in the past have been very generous with us, and they got us through the COVID experience. Right now, we are in a financial position there where we are able to maintain our own expenses. We're here specifically today not because we need money, it's the time is becoming our issue. Just to put it into perspective, a single rental there, you think, oh, well, that's just only going to take an hour worth of time there because they have a rental for an hour. Well, typically when the person has to call, they come and see the place numerous times, and then depending on what the actual rental is, there's a potential it has to be babysat and then cleaned up afterwards, and all of this takes a huge amount of effort. So for 1 hour of a rental, you're probably talking 3 or 4 hours worth of time to actually get the rental completed. And then if you had a wedding, then it's astronomically more. I'm sure, as many of us are aware there, when someone's coming to look at and figure out what they want to do for a wedding there's lots of planning for how they're going to decorate it and so on. So you'll have somebody come in for multiple times to see different things and put in the time and effort to figure out how they're going to make that venue a success for their day. And as mentioned earlier, because these are historical facilities there, we can't exactly just give them the keys and say, oh, go do your thing and put things up on the walls and so on. We have found in the past there, to protect the historical charm of the facility there, that we do need to monitor the people that are using the facility to make sure that they're not doing things that are going to adversely affect the long-term health of those facilities. The Hockley Community Historic Hall and Church would like to continue as part of this discussion. We don't see this organization going away. We still want to support the facilities. We still think these facilities are important. We're looking to find a way to partner with the town of Mono there and figure out a way to lessen the volunteer hours that we're having, as well as ensure that we have facilities that are here for the long term. So that's the end of my formal presentation there. I look forward to some questions, and hopefully I can answer them to the best of my ability.
Just as a preface to the questions, we've been in discussion with you informally, Ralph Magdalo and myself, for about 2 years now, I think, starting with a meeting that we were invited to, where various scenarios were explored. This, however, is the first formal presentation that we've received. And I'm going to call on Ralph to ask the first question, because he and I are more familiar with your situation. I should also indicate that Scott Anderson, the new mayor of Mono-Adjala, called me, and we had a really good discussion. I gather he was at your open house. And I think there is an interest, finally, on the part of our neighboring municipality in maybe doing something of some kind. How that shakes out, I don't know. But the fact that he took the initiative to call me, I'm impressed by that and heartened by it. Ralph?
Thanks for your presentation, Tom. This is a real asset to the community, no question about that, and it has great historical value. I must say I'm very impressed with you and your board, the work that you do all as a volunteer to maintain this out of, shall we say, the goodness of your heart and the importance that you feel of this place. Well, we have a number of issues with this that we're sort of tussling with, and I'll just not expect any answers from you, but we have to decide if we need it. We have 2 other community halls plus, and they're not fully used. Do we have the staff to take care of it? I'm not sure that we do. What are the upgrades that need to be done to bring it up to municipal standards? So those are some of the ideas that are problems or issues that we're dealing with. I have a question for you about the funding. You've listed quite a good funding number here. Your fundraising was $7,500 last year. How do you accomplish that?
Through the mayor to Councillor Matalo. There's various things. So as I said, the largest revenue source that we have are rentals. So that would be the biggest component there. The second biggest component there would be our annual strawberry breakfast. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me right now there, but I believe we're close to $2,000 in revenue from that particular event alone. So that would be our largest event, and then rentals would be definitely the most significant for us.
Thank you. I had my columns mixed up. I thought that was just sort of fundraising. Your Honor, I think that there's a need for us to do a business plan for this and study it before we can make any decisions.
Okay. Any questions, Fred?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really conflicted by this. I appreciate what you people have done and what you're asking. As someone who's partly responsible for the taxes Mono residents pay, the thought that goes through my mind, similar to Ralph's, is we already have 2 community centers. Both of them we lose money on, lots of money. And I mean, Kim, we have set the rental rates at market, and we try to rent them out, but they don't pay for themselves. We own another church, which brings in 0 revenues. We own a house on Hockley Road, which, well, that may change now, but for 3 or 4 years, it's been costing us about $10,000 a year, and it brings in 0. For us to take over ownership of this, which yeah, I understand your ask, but that would give us 5 properties that we're losing money on. And so while I'm quite sympathetic to what you're asking for, I'm conflicted, because where's the money going to come from? You know, we have the lowest tax rate in Dufferin County. I'd like to keep it that way. We may not be able to, because Mike had some bridges he says we have to replace next year. But I mean, if we have to do it, we have to do it. But then understand something. If our taxes all of a sudden are not the lowest in Dufferin County, you'll start understand why. The pressures on us are great. That's all I have to say today, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. And I have enjoyed these halls for various and sundry events, and they are beautiful pieces of history that we have in our town. I would wholeheartedly support designating these as heritage properties to protect and preserve them. I know we have some members of the Heritage Committee here. They might feel that we could have a talk about that, but I would support that because I think that's utmost important. I really appreciate that it brings neighbors and community together, and that is valuable, and you can't put a price on that, and I don't consider us losing money on any of our facilities. They are an investment, and so we try to recoup costs, but they're not a loser in that sense. They are an investment in community, but still, we do have to manage the budget to satisfy all of our citizens. I'm not sure I understand why, because you've done such a fabulous job, why it's no longer sustainable. I'm not sure I understand that, and I'm not sure I understand what your expectation is of a partnership, that you say you're going to continue to do things. Why do you need us? So I'm not sure I'm clear on that, so I don't know if you can help me.
Yeah, through the mayor, I think the starting point to answer your question there is we have had various informal discussions. So our goal today was to take our informal discussions and make them formal. And then what that partnership looks like, I think going through our formal discussion and our questions today, it's ultimately the goal is to figure out what that is. I know in my work where I work there, we have a few facilities there that the municipality that I work at there owns. And one way that they've helped out there is they assist with a lot of the capital projects. The town insures the facilities. And then the community group in those particular cases there do a lot of more of the operating type things. So by doing that, it's allowed for the community group to focus on the community and providing the events and doing that sort of thing, as opposed to more of the day in, day out type work there that a property requires. So potentially that could be a solution there where we work that way. But ultimately what that solution is, our goal going through our formal discussion today and maybe potentially working with staff in the future would be to come up with a plan where we can ultimately reduce the amount of volunteer hours that are required there just to keep the lights on in these facilities and allow us to focus on making them community facilities and places of meeting.
Thank you. And I do know that in some previous conversations that simply saying the town can just take this over, it's not that simple, as we know. And for us to actually take it on as a municipal-owned facility, it would have to be probably invested in quite substantially to bring it up to the standards that are required under the municipal regulations. I don't know what that costs. So back to what Ralph said, there needs to be numbers put against this so that we know exactly what would it cost if the town were to take it over in terms of, first of all, bringing it up to those standards that they would need to be at, and then to actually run that facility. And then to, look at that in a dollars and cents way, which I know you can't put a price on, the heart of community, but we have to put a price on it because we have to know that. So that would be something we would need to do.
Ralph?
I'm wondering if our new CAO has some thoughts on this.
Thank you, Councillor Manklow. Thanks, Tom. You've presented the town with a very unique opportunity, and very promising to hear that the Mayor of Adjala has reached out. I think there's opportunity for discussions with perhaps your worship, the Mayor of Adjala, to see what that opportunity is and what their interest is in order to help. The mentioning of the partnership is a promising thing for staff with respect to hopefully the reducing of financial input from the town. But at the end of the day, I think there is going to be investment on the town required, as as Deputy Mayor Nix had mentioned. We're entering into our budget season, and I believe that a report on and discussions with Adjala and perhaps with the Hockley board would be appropriate for council now to see a staff report in writing on what this model would look like moving forward.
Does somebody like to move a motion to that effect, and then we'll put it on our to-do list as well? Ralph?
So that we direct staff to bring back a report on the potential
Options.
for this opportunity.
Options.
Yeah.
Second. If I could say a few words, the thing that I think we have to be mindful of is that there aren't a lot of amenities for residents at that end of our municipality, any more than there are for the residents of Mono-Adjala in terms of it being at the far south end. So we look at it, I think, from that standpoint. The other thing is that, you know, we talk about bringing things up to municipal standard. And of course, if the budget is unlimited, it ends up being hundreds of thousands of dollars. But if we can do something that is minimal, in a way which doesn't put us on the hook for a brand new state-of-the-art kitchen, state-of-the-art water system, you know, various things like that. It strikes me as being unusual that we have these two standards. You know, the community board standard, which is working just fine right now, and then all of a sudden when we start talking about it being a municipally run operation, we're into all kinds of cost and bureaucracy and red tape and stuff like that. So I would hope that when staff looks at this, they look at it from the standpoint of what we could do at a minimum as opposed to a maximum. And I am mindful that many of your volunteers have been doing this for a very long time. I wouldn't say they're getting tired, but they certainly deserve to have some reinforcements, and maybe there needs to be a recruitment plan in terms of getting other members of the immediate community involved. Elaine?
Oh, sorry, I should have turned my mic off. Yeah, and I appreciate that, but boards and organizations have been running for eons that support not-for-profit organizations, and they keep going. So I kind of, if you need new blood, get new blood. But also, I would like you to think about contacting Volunteer Dufferin, because they have a whole list of people who want to come and volunteer. So I know it's a little complicated for things that you need people to do, but there's another option if you need extra support for volunteers.
Okay. I see somebody wants to chime in, but we do have to move along. And I take it we have a motion on the floor to proceed with a study. Fred?
May I suggest that the motion be amended to also include that we add this item to the list of council unfinished business?
Certainly, and I was going to raise that when we got to the list. Yeah, but let's do it now. Okay, so we're adding it to our list of priorities, and we'll assign it a priority as well. So the motion is on the floor. Is there any opposition? The motion is carried. Thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll be in touch.
All right, and thank you, Mayor and Council, there for listening to our delegation.
Thank you. So, ironically, our next item on the agenda is unfinished council business, and we've just added another item to that list. So we are up to item number 11. Does council wish to assign it a priority and or any other indicators of responsibility? Elaine?
Well, I think it's not a high priority. I think it's a low priority. This particular item we just heard about? Is that what you're asking me? Yes or no? I'm sorry, did I misunderstand your question?
No, no, my phone is
Okay,
annoying me here.
you got distracted. Okay. It's a low priority in terms of all the other things that we have to deal with. I don't think the sky is falling. I think the group is doing a great job, and hopefully, you know, they can just keep going until we can get to it. I don't think it's a high priority.
Ralph?
Having met with some of the directors, and I think there's some issues here that as the longer it goes, the more problem it is. Excuse me. And let's just move it up to medium. And I think we do need to get on with this. If this is put aside for an hour, a year, it's in trouble.
I don't really see this as our issue at the moment. I think it is a community concern, and yes, it should go on the list, but I think there are other more pressing items that we should deal with first. That's just my thought.
I keep getting people in the audience. Normally, audience intervention at this stage is rare. We're going to allow it for another item on the agenda, but if you can very quickly state your case and your name and address, sir.
Yes. My name is Victor Trentz.
You'll need to use the microphone, if you can turn it on.
My name is Victor Trentz. I'm a community member of Hockley Village.
Yes.
I reside on
If
the
you can
Mono-Adjala.
press the button to activate the sound. There you
Okay.
go.
My name is Victor Trentz. I reside on the Hockley Village, and I'm a resident of Mono. You're completely right. It's not an immediate priority. The board has not sought additional volunteer support from the community. The board has done a wonderful, wonderful job, spectacular. They've got it revitalized, it's alive, but there are people in the community that are willing to step up, and the platform should change. And I realize that tax dollars are tax dollars, because we all pay them and they seem to go up and never go down. So I think that there's an opportunity to revisit this at the board level before, or at the community level before it goes back to you for a different planning purpose. And I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of the villagers, because I was there at the town hall meeting.
Okay.
And the mayor from Adjala did attend, and he had a lot of good information, so.
Yes.
All right.
Well, I think
Sorry,
that,
thank you.
and that was valuable input, and I think that discussion at the community level can take place simultaneously with staff working on this, and I don't have a problem with it being a low priority, but mindful that we should have a report in time to consider any budget implications. Okay, I think it would be,
That's pretty fast.
that's pretty fast?
Yeah, I don't think this year.
Okay. Well, I'm in the hands of council as to whether it's a low or a medium. Those in favor of low? Those in favor of medium? If we're not aiming for something in time for inclusion in the budget potentially, and if there is this ongoing involvement with trying to recruit new people and engage more individuals locally, I'll go with low. Okay, any other discussion of the unfinished council business?
It's a low, yes.
It's a low. Yes, Fred?
On unfinished town business, I just wanted to check with staff on the road need study, because, just let me find it again. Yeah, you've labeled it as difficult, but, and I think at one point you had said to do it, we'd need to hire a consultant. But Mike, if I remember correctly, 12 years ago or whatever it was, the first study you did, which wasn't approved of by council, I think you put those numbers together yourself, did you not? So I'm just having trouble understanding why it would be so difficult. I mean, couldn't you take that study that was not approved by council 12 years ago, give it to Matt and say, Matt, what numbers here need revisions, given 12 years of data on traffic volumes or whatever else it is, and just go through that chart or those tables, and maybe a lot of the numbers, or at least a lot of the implications of those numbers in terms of when we're going to pave a road, maybe they stay the same, I don't know, but it would be updated. So why are we labeling this difficult?
I believe that council, Deputy Mayor, I believe that council might have labeled it difficult. I'm not sure. I missed the last meeting, but I would say moderate would be good. The basis of the 2012-2022 report that I prepared was on multiple background documents prepared by the town engineer. my new knowledge of the town of Mono, my best estimates with respect to construction costs. So that was all sort of encompassed in the document. We have had some growth. We have had changes to our assets. We have had a more detailed look at our assets over the last 10, 14 years. So taking what we have in-house, doing exactly as you've mentioned, updating numbers, adding the new assets, it would be a moderate issue. It's covered partially by the development charges fees. 75%, I believe, are covered by development charges. And we've already started, we've been working through these discussions for a couple of years now with the town engineer. And we're starting to get discussions with her to have, Mr. Donor and I are having discussions now with the people that actually worked on some of the 2008 material. So we're working towards it. We plan to give a number to council, what the 25% would look like. And we plan to, with council approval, update that in 2024.
Okay, if I could just add, I mean, I think all of our bridges are inspected, what, every 2 years? So we have data on them, and if something's changed and the life expectancy is changing, we have an asset management plan, which I'm not sure, Matt, but it would look at the ratings for our asphalt-covered roads and say their expected life is such and such, and I don't know how often we check that. And we do traffic volumes on a, so my point only being, Mr. Dunmore, we have the data, I think, that we need. It just needs someone to sit down with that 2012 report and say, okay, how does all of this data change anything? When are we going to have to replace this culvert, or when are we going to have to repave this road, or when do the traffic volumes here dictate that we put asphalt down? I don't think it's a mammoth job.
No, I would agree, Deputy Mayor, and if at the will of council, I would recommend that you just let Matt and I continue with our discussions with the engineer and bring you back a 2024 impact of the remaining fees that will be required outside of the current development cost coverage, to bring this into, to get your plan, your 10-year, your 20-year plan that you need to speak to the residents.
Are we good? Okay, next item. Oh, Elaine?
Sorry, Your Worship, but before we move off the unfinished business, number 8 under bylaws, correspondence, et cetera, short-term accommodations, I think we know we're going to stick that on the list, so we may as well stick it on there now. Or we can wait until we get to number 8.
What?
Short-term accommodations.
Let's wait until we get
Okay,
to 8.
yeah, great.
I think it's
Can I
going on
ask another question? Can we turn the air conditioning off? Or turn the heat on? I'm freezing.
It's 20.
The air is set at 22, so you're going to have to put the heat on to warm it up.
Thank you.
It's set at 22, it's reading 20.
This is designed to keep the meeting short. Okay, anything to do with unfinished council business? Okay, moving along to bylaws, correspondence, and new business. And I have a motion that I'm going to read and immediately suggest council indulge some comment from the audience. And I'm suggesting today that it be first reading only, so as to allow further comment from the public. But it is a motion. I'm already seeing ways of improving it, but I'm going to read it as it is. Whereas interim changes to our sign bylaw are needed to address issues regarding real estate signage, therefore be it resolved the clerk bring forward a revised bylaw more or less reflecting the following. 1, Section 11 be amended to read, any sign that does not conform to any provision of this bylaw and/or that falls into disrepair shall be removed by the owner, occupant, or permit holder. The town reserves the right to remove such signs at the expense of the owner, occupant, or permit holder. The owner, occupant, or permit holder shall be notified by the town in writing to remove such signage or have signage removed by the town at their expense. The town reserves the right to deny any application to re-erect such signage. Number 2, that Schedule A be amended to read real estate. This is a definition section. Real estate means a single sign to the sale or lease of the lot upon which the sign is located. The exception being corner lots where one additional sign is permitted. I can already see that changing. The real estate sign may be placed for the duration of the listing. Currently, it is 6 months, but we've indicated on the amendment here, duration of the listing, but no longer than 2 weeks after the sale of the lot is indicated on the signage. Number 3, Schedule B be amended, subject to research to read. And this, the fact that we're doing first reading will give us an opportunity to see whether this size is reasonable. Real estate maximum size, residential 1 square meter, other zones 3 square meters. In other words, recognizing a difference between built-up areas and rural areas in the town. I'm going to move that, if I may. Do I have a seconder? Councillor, or Deputy Mayor Nix. Discussion. Let's hear from the public, and then we'll. Good morning, Elaine.
Elaine Kehoe, 388193 Mono Center Road. I'm a realtor as well as a resident. I think that you have to bring in more factors than just realtor signs. Okay. I am in agreement that there is an abuse of the real estate signs right now, but there's also an abuse of other signs on Airport Road, on Mono Center Road, and even with respect to businesses that are now being run from their home. There has to be a limitation on the type of signs that are put up and the size of signs. So your motion should include all signs, not just realtor signs, my suggestion. Next, I think that your motion has to have a penalty so there should be a requirement of 1 notice in writing, remove it within a certain period of time. If it's not removed, then a penalty has to be put into effect. Now, with respect to realtors, if that notice must be given to the broker of record, not just the agent's sign, the agent named on the sign.
Good point.
And then thirdly, if that is not adhered to, you can then resource to sending the notice to the Toronto Real Estate Board. They have an obligation that we, our members of the board, have to follow rules and regulations. So I think you're going to get more leverage with a broker's notice than with a realtor's notice. Okay. And finally, I think with respect to the removal of the signs, the owner of the property ought to be notified, and the owner ought to be aware that the penalty does not only fall on the realtor who they have employed, but on themselves. So it's something that should be added to the tax roll. We should not be sending our tax dollars out there cleaning up signs, all signs, not just realtor signs. But and they should be aware that they tell their realtor or person, whether it's a construction, for instance. I've seen contractors have huge signs in front of homes, you know, we do foundations or whatever. So we're talking all signs. The last one, there should be on our website, the Mono website, a place specifically for complaints. So we don't have staff listening to the complaints by phone every day. You have a place, they give the address. I've driven by this property, you know, a number of times. It avoids conflict between neighbor to neighbor or community member to community member.
Elaine, there is a place on our website for complaints.
I find it difficult to find it sometimes.
It could be
And
easier to find.
And
I
it could
agree.
be a lot easier to find. In fact, I tried it yesterday,
It should
and
be
it
front and
wasn't an
center.
easy spot. And I think it should basically have a heading, because this is a concern of the people in the area.
Can I ask Elaine a question?
Yep, go ahead.
Elaine, with your experience, what, do you know what other municipalities do?
I only know Toronto. And I know in Toronto, they do not limit the number of signs, however, the neighbors definitely do. And it's, you know, the sign just disappears overnight. But they do require the sign to be taken down 2 weeks after it's sold. They will only allow, here we're dealing with a rural property. So for you to say you have one sign, it's not possible when you have 100 acres. But you can say that you're permitted to have a direction, so a smaller sign to the north of the property, a smaller sign to the south of the property, so that anyone showing the property can see the limits of what the land contains. But not the massive billboards, and maybe not even our regular size, the 1 meter size signs, but a direction so that there is. So, but, and you can again limit it to 3 signs, the for sale sign and then the direction signs. But you can't ask for 1 sign on a 100-acre property. It does not make sense.
Fair enough. This is excellent, and I know that there's other views as well, but this is really excellent. And your point is well taken about the proliferation of other signs. And you know, as I was reading this, I was thinking this is very easy to change. But let me put this into context. We have keyed on the real estate signs on a number of locations. Letters have gone out to, now it may simply be the real estate agent. I don't know whether it was the real estate agent and or broker, but they've also gone out to the property owners. And we've said, you know, please remove the signs. To the best of my knowledge, only one of the properties where these letters went out, signs came down. Everywhere else, they've stayed up. And I'm gonna, you know, name names here. Property 25th Side Road by Highway 10. We have transport trailer trucks up there, and a real estate sign that has been there, I think, since I was a teenager. I'm exaggerating.
But perhaps you're not putting, and I'm saying perhaps because I've not seen the letters, but if you put a restricted date, like you have with 10 days to remove, failing which we will notify the board.
Yes.
Your real estate board or your construction, or I don't know how it would work, but you've got to be able to have leverage, and it should clearly state what the penalty would be.
Yes. And I have a notice of motion for later on in the meeting that addresses the issue of our bylaw enforcement policy, which is the policy that guides the approach that we take to all bylaw enforcement. And we can certainly look at that. I have a wording, but again, open to suggestions as to how it can be made better.
The problem is that, you know, it's great to have the bylaws and to have the enforcement of it, but we have to have the penalty involved because we as taxpayers are going to end up paying for the extra employees we need to enforce the bylaw.
Yeah, and the penalty traditionally is what you get as a result of a conviction in court. It shouldn't be necessarily have to be that. It could be what we call an administrative penalty, but we don't yet have a scheme in place to do administrative penalties. I wish we did. It will come. It is inevitable. It should probably be done county-wide at the county level on behalf of local municipalities. But you're absolutely right. Our taxpayers should not be bearing the brunt of our enforcement efforts, although I don't think enforcement is ever going to make money. At least we can try and offset as much of the cost as we can.
One of the other things you might consider is posting anyone who breaches it and fails to comply, printing their names on the website so that the public is aware that they're not meeting our community obligations.
We already have a website devoted to orders that have been made by the building inspector and matters before the courts and the status of those matters before the courts. And I think we're the only municipality that in fact does that so that people can see transparently what our enforcement efforts are. Ralph, did you?
Yes. Elaine, thanks for your presentation. You brought up the issue of the margins of a large property. I'm not quite clear on what you're suggesting.
So this is the 100 acres. I would put a sign here that indicates that this is the boundary of that property, one here, and then my sign here at the driveway of the property.
So they're very clearly boundary signs.
That's correct.
Okay.
And the boundary signs can have a limited size so that you don't have billboards again. But you need to have signs in order to sell a property, especially a vacant property or a 100-acre even 25 acres, you know, because we've got a lot of parcels that are cut out that aren't square. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Lori?
Welcome back.
Welcome back again.
Thanks. I agree with most of what Elaine said. I'm not about to buy smaller signs to mark the boundaries. My signs are 24 by 36 inches. They're not invasive, they're not intrusive, but we need to clearly delineate. I've got a property in the first line of Mono that's 25 acres in the middle of a 100-acre field. That's the only way you can make people know what the boundaries of that property are. And I also understand the dealing with bylaw officers and fines, and I think it's going to be a huge expense to try to deal with that in-house. Like I said, I totally get it, and there's a lot of people that are, you know, they don't walk the line that most of us do. But a lot of the signs that you're talking about are clearly personal advertisement signs, and they're massive.
Yes.
And that's where you should be targeting, not the poor bugger that's got to sell his house because he can't afford to live there because the economy is so bad. Because that's what you're doing by saying, sorry, buddy, you get one sign. Like I said, I think it's a lot more thought and time and effort needs to go into this before you make any firm decisions on, you know, what you're going to do with it. I agree, there's got to be rules and regulations, but I don't think you can send a bylaw officer into a private property and take down signs that are on that private property either without opening up a large can of worms. So I think there's a lot of factors to look at.
We already sort of have that authority under the existing bylaw. And again, I think we need to clarify that, that authority, whether or not it is accurate. But, you know, I'm a believer in giving people notice, but a very short period of time to comply before some action is taken, whether they are charged under the bylaw or required to take the sign down. Timeline should be as short as possible, in my view, for simple things.
I get it, but it's not just real estate signs. So I think you're picking on one industry that's really a service industry when this municipality is like massively invaded by signs of all kinds. Half of them are fallen down and ripped and torn. I mean, there's a sign on Highway 10 that's a tarp advertising one of the grocery stores in Shelburne, and it just kind of flaps in the wind, and the sign beside it is ridiculous. It's, you know, it's fallen down. So like I said, there's you got to pick on everything. You just can't take one industry and say, okay, we're going to declare you guys the bad guys, because like, there's a property down the road from me that has 8 or 10 30-foot flags advertising their cornbread and their butter tarts. I don't care. Everybody needs to make a living. It's wonderful, but like that's an eyesore. I'm sorry, they have like 6 little signs and at least 6 or 8 flags. And the property right across the road from it has a derelict front porch that's been hanging off it for 20 years. Old wrecked cars and a wheelchair laying out in the front lawn. Like, if you're going to try to clean up a township, then let's do it the right way. Just don't pick on one industry and say, you guys are the bad guys, so we're starting with you first. Put a bylaw in place and make it for everybody.
Elaine?
100% agree.
Thank you.
And I don't think we were intentionally doing this. We have a sign bylaw that has everything in it.
And enforce it.
But this was a specific ad to make sure it was clear that we can't have those billboard advertising, I'm a real estate
Like
person
I'm saying,
signs. Yeah.
you're picking on one industry.
No, I don't think we meant to
No,
pick
you
on it.
are.
It was
Like,
to
drive them,
update that
I'm on
bylaw.
every road in the municipality every day.
Yeah,
Like, there's all kinds of personal promotion signs and stupid signs for everything, everywhere. I hate signs with a passion. But,
and those signs are
I mean-
covered by the bylaw, are they not?
but you
the
gotta
existing one.
enforce the bylaw.
Yes.
And
If you don't
we
enforce the bylaw, there's no use
No
adding
sense in having it.
amendments to a bylaw that you're not going to enforce.
Exactly.
So, like I said, I took great umbrage reading your posts on Facebook last night, John, without, and, you know, I take 2 seconds to hit, now I'm mad, and why I'm here today, because you're picking on one industry when I can take you 300 feet down the road and show you all kinds of
Right.
signs that are in violation of, or should be in violation of a sign bylaw that make no sense to anybody.
Yeah.
The real estate industry is, except for the promotional signs, is doing a service for the public. And especially in this economy, like I said, we need to be able to promote that property so anybody driving past can see it. Maybe a little sign at the end of the fourth line saying, we have a property half a mile up with an arrow. That's not hurting anybody. It's no more offensive than all the fair signs and all the opera house signs and all the stop the 407 and save the
Slow down.
trees.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like, yeah,
413.
415. So, but like I'm saying, it's, like, some of those signs have been up for years. And years, I mean, there's a couple on 89 Highway that are still saying about the pit in Melanchthon that's been gone for 6 years, 7 years. No, that never appeared. So like I'm saying, make the bylaw fair for everybody. Nobody wants a blight on the municipality, but there's thousands and thousands and thousands of signs in this municipality.
Yeah.
So let's be fair to everybody and make it, this is a rule. And if somebody's got a personal promotion sign up that doesn't have a permit, that's obnoxious, like, I don't care that Chris Rose has a sign up on his property that's 800 feet long. If it doesn't meet the bylaw, then make him take it down. If it meets the bylaw and he pays for a permit, it's no different than all the other signs on Highway 10 that have been there for decades that, you know, are advertising campgrounds or whatever. Just make it fair.
If necessary, I will withdraw this from, I hope it gets first reading approval today, but if necessary, I'll withdraw it. I'll go back to the drawing board and make sure that it covers all signage, not simply real estate signage. But
I'd
it was
appreciate that,
It was the
John.
real estate signage that has gotten our attention
Okay, but I'm
recently.
gonna start calling every day there and complain about every other
You
sign
don't,
that's out there that
you don't have to, Lori.
totally aggravate me. Just, and send hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Like I said, make it fair.
Yeah.
This needs to be a fair playing field for everybody. Everybody follows the same rules, then everybody's playing
Okay.
the same game.
Yeah. Thank you.
I've said too much, but I say what I have to. Thank you.
Thank you. And if it wasn't for my post, we wouldn't have had the input that we received today, so.
Is there anybody else who wants to make a comment? No?
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
On the sign bylaw?
Is it signed by law? Okay, very quickly, because we have another delegation that we've got to get to.
I was part of a few locations.
Uh,
I've been part of a few locations to Eugene, and particularly one on Highway on Airport Road, a big one about a roofing company.
Okay, you need to speak closer to the mic.
Yeah. And
Louis, thank you.
he hasn't had an opportunity to, he says, to get out there. This is like 4 or 5 weeks ago. And he did indicate that he is still, or he has given up his relationship with Emma, which would make his job a little easier. Is that correct? Or did I
Yeah,
misunderstand him?
he's now working exclusively for the town of Mono.
Just Mono.
Yes, he no longer has he's given up the contract with East Garifraxa, I believe.
He still has a contract with Amaranth.
He still works for Amaranth, okay.
I think he's overwhelmed from my discussions with him. Now, you can make all the decisions you want,
Yeah.
but it's more labor that you need.
We also
More
have,
backup.
yeah, we also have a second bylaw officer, and he is specializing in the signage. So we're trying to cover that off.
Okay, now, as far as the signage is concerned, and something new, I have a comment that somebody made on the Ritchie matter, and it was a comment regarding why the $20,000
Okay,
wasn't called.
what's the relationship to
Pardon?
signage? Louis, what's the relationship to signage?
Well, because if you're going to put up signs, what I think we have to do is fine everybody who puts up a sign and breaches the particulars of
Well,
getting rid of it.
I think we're all in agreement that if we have a bylaw, it needs to be enforced, or what's the point of having a bylaw?
But enforced with money.
Well-
Or the alternative is if you don't pay it, it goes against your taxes.
Okay, that there are some technical problems with that occurring. It's far easier when it's an administrative penalty. Those are registered against one's taxes, but I do not believe that, if we could register POA fines to real estate taxes, we wouldn't have over $1 billion in unpaid POA fines province-wide and 4.5 million in Dufferin. So there's a bigger problem here in terms of how we get people to pay fines.
Well, I just, connection with fines, I recall at Smokies, I think it was
Okay,
Michael.
I think we're going beyond the sign bylaw, and I think you're probably in agreement with the two previous speakers in terms of the fact that anything that we bring forward has to be enforceable, needs to be enforced, and needs to cover any kind of signage that runs contrary to our bylaw. So I'm going to assume that, Louis, but we do need to move on to an in-camera matter that is scheduled.
Does that include number 4 on the list? Which is a review of set fines and bylaw enforcement. Is that what we're talking about?
No, that's a copy of a presentation that I made to the Attorney General about.
You have it on the list.
Oh, sorry, just one second.
It has a September the 12th. It's very fresh and current. And we
Okay,
have a lot of precedent.
that goes to the issue of whether or not the fines are appropriate, whether they've been revisited sometime in the last decade, many of them haven't been, and whether we should be making submissions to the regional senior judge to increase our fines. And I think the answer to that is that there are key bylaws where the fines are ridiculously low, and we need to do something about it.
Well, I've heard a lot of talk about something about it, but very little has been done.
We are going to identify bylaws that are key bylaws in the town that we get convictions on, where the resulting fine is not a deterrent to the person doing what they're doing, and in fact, they sometimes come back and continue the activity. So
Yeah, but you
rest
haven't
assured that we are on this.
I'll just end up with the following, because you also talk about set fines.
Yeah,
And if
no,
you-
this has gone beyond the signage discussion, and we will
Everything
have an appropriate submission on the level of fine that flows from any amended sign bylaw.
Well, I don't think that's appropriate.
Well, I think you were just asking that we fine people, and I'm saying, yes, we
fine
should
people, but
on
not just some
conviction.
bylaw.
on conviction. Louis, I'm going to have to call this, cut this off because we have to move on. And unfortunately, we're no longer talking about signs, we're talking about fines.
And you don't have any money coming in.
We do have money coming in, sorry. Not enough. Not enough. Okay, thank you. Elaine?
So to go back to a comment that you made, Your Worship, about withdrawing the motion and coming back with, I think, a fulsome amendment to the current sign bylaw, which incorporates more of the comments that we've heard today instead of moving forward with one that we don't really think has got everything in it.
Well, I'd like to see first reading of the current wording, and then in between now and when it returns, if it's necessary, when it returns, I'll ask that it be rescinded and replaced by a wording that more reflects what we've been talking about here.
If that's the appropriate procedure, yeah.
I think it's important to signal that we consider this an issue and that we're working on it.
All right, yeah, great, thanks.
Now, did we pass it? Okay, so there is a motion on the floor. Is there any opposition to it? And this is first reading only. Motion is therefore carried. And I saw Mr. Wilker online there a few moments ago. Fred?
Just to clarify, Your Worship, so what I'll do is bring back a bylaw. That bylaw will be first reading. So this is direction
Yes,
to
this is a
staff.
direction
This isn't
to-
actually an
Yeah.
amendment to the bylaw.
Okay,
Okay, so an amending bylaw will come back. That will be
okay.
first, second, and third, however many readings council wishes to give it at that time.
And maybe to forestall further changes, you've picked up some of you've got a sense of the room in terms of what we're looking for in terms of other signage that the public may find offensive?
So are you looking for me to not make amendments exactly as written, but to modify those as I feel the discussion is gone and bring that back? That'll be what I bring
The
back.
wording says more or less reflecting, so I think that
Right.
gives you some latitude.
Okay, so that's what'll come back. Does this need to go on council's unfinished business, or is council expecting this for the next meeting?
No, not the next meeting, but I think it should go on the unfinished business.
Okay, is council interested in passing a motion to that effect?
I'd love to move that this be added to the unfinished business list, and I would like to see it go before the kite flying, because I think kite flying season has come to an end. And so I would put this before kite flying as a priority.
Assuming that we get to that?
So,
Just on our list, yes,
so
exactly.
that's moved. Do I have a seconder for that?
I'm not sure what the motion is, but I'll second it.
Okay.
That we add the amendments to the signed bylaw to the
We're
list
adding it
of
to the-
unfinished
to the
council
to-do
business.
list.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
At a moderate level? Everyone agree it's moderate? Okay.
Further comment?
Yes.
Yeah, further comment on this. I think that we need to somehow or other get this issue out to the public so that other interested parties can respond and we can get the input, the valuable input they provide on the real estate community and others.
Okay. And I think we can take care of that through social media and our webpage.
What I would recommend is that, of course, this will be put into council highlights. When it comes for first reading, council gives it first reading, and then we go to a broader community engagement. And council at that time can decide if they want just a survey, if they want a public open house, the general terms of what that broad engagement.
Okay.
And then we do that between first and second reading.
Okay. Sounds good to me. I think after today, it will be on people's radars. Thank you very much for the input. It was very, very helpful, very useful. Okay.
And that motion's been called, has it, Your Worship?
If it hasn't been, is there any opposition? And that's to add it to our to-do list. Seeing none, the motion is carried.
Thank you.
Are we going to move to Jeff or wait for 10:30?
Are we in a position to speak to our solicitor?
He's online and available. That's up to you, Your Worship, if you want to continue through the agenda or jump straight
Let's,
to.
let's do that. I know that there's some tough timelines here today.
I can get a coffee, but I vote for bringing it.
So,
Thanks for coming. So you spend something item that the Heritage Committee is here for and then go in camera? So we don't
Sure.
have to sit here?
okay, I thought we were just, I know.
Yeah, I didn't hear you call a recess.
No, I didn't.
I'm just stretching
No, you can do
Yeah.
my injured leg. It doesn't like
John, are we going in recess?
I think de facto we sort of have, but let's, let's go back and let's continue in session, I think.
Okay, so, Andrew, we're going to continue in session. We're not going to go in camera quite yet.
Okay.
Thanks, Fred.
So with council's indulgence, I'm going to call item number 3 because we have some guests who are interested in the outcome of this, that being the naming of Dorothy J. Needles Heritage Garden and a bylaw to that effect. Yes.
If I may. Just to confer, but I believe item number 5 is of interest.
Number 5.
3 and 5? Okay,
Both?
great.
Okay. I thought it was.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do both. So I have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to rename the Mono Heritage Garden, Dorothy J. Needles Heritage Garden, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk for the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Cape, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Ralph, do you have any observations?
Yes, I do. First of all, the motion should, I believe, be the Dorothy J. Needles Garden. That's the proper name for it. There's a problem with the garden. This is the heritage booklet that is in a small letterbox.
If you could just be a little closer to the mic.
This is the Heritage Committee's booklet that's in a letterbox by the garden right now. There are 16 items in here. They're principally related to medicinal items and other items that an early settler family would find useful. Unfortunately, the current state of the garden is poor. It's mostly burdock, about 90% burdock. We did an audit of the plants that are there, and there are 4 plants there. The common teasel, which is an interesting plant that was used for teasing out wool to sort of a carding process, and BYLAWS, which is good for your throat if it's sore and other ailments, and soapwort. So 2 of these are also invasive, and we wouldn't want to have them at the garden. So we've got a bit of a problem here in terms of content. I very much favor continuing the garden, recognizing that it doesn't really fit in with the poor available pollinator garden because it's not related to pollinators. But it is an important garden that I think that our community should try and preserve. We do have space for the garden there. I've talked to our management committee, and they're supportive of the concept. In order for this to fly, we would need to purchase new plants. And we'd be prepared to do that. There'd be a little budget cost that we would like assistance from the town. And we're prepared to work on, perhaps with the Heritage Committee, a suitable sign that would recognize Dorothy J. Needles and what the garden's, what it's about. We also are uneasy about using the term garden because people read this and they say, well, I thought this was the Mono-Pollinator Garden, and they see it's the Dorothy J. Needles Garden, which probably should change the name to something else, such as the Dorothy J. Needles Plot, or something like that.
Plot sounds like.
Yeah, we'll come up with a better one. Pat? Site? Location? Anyway, something else, maybe Barbara has another suggestion.
Fred, do we have the ability to amend the motion and/or bylaw to reflect a plot as opposed to a garden?
Yes, we do.
Well, that was my first reaction.
Site?
commemorative site, perhaps?
Mhm.
Dorothy J. Needles commemorative site?
I don't like the word commemorative, we said we didn't want that in the contract.
Worse.
What was that?
What's another word for garden?
Plug it, I'm just looking at a quick thesaurus here.
Yeah, I've done that.
Rockery,
I've done that, Fred, and it didn't
you've
help.
already done, so nothing came up when you did that, Councillor Manklow, so rockery didn't work. Common? Commons? I know usually refers to an area where people congregate.
Mhm.
Green?
How about site, S-I-T-E?
This is gonna be easy.
Come on, Elaine.
Suggestions from the Heritage Committee.
Any thoughts?
Round? How did we do the Heritage Gardens?
Can you speak a little louder?
So I think the suggestion is it's not going to confuse too many people.
Yeah, because it's explicit.
Yeah, and it's focused on a set piece of within. I mean, we can, there's no urgency to this.
No.
We could defer this until we come up with.
Nothing's easy. Patch, that's what I said, patch.
Pat,
And
Pat,
that
Pat,
fits with her because she was a quilter and a knitter and a weaver and a.
Oh, Mike,
Oh.
Mike,
Pat,
Patch.
Pat suits me, all right.
does patch work for people?
Dorothy J. Needles, patch. Well, you don't have to put in the garden, just patch.
Section,
Patch. This, yes,
Garden is not that confusing.
right.
If you say this part of the pollinator garden, this Dorothy this section, heritage.
Okay, so the idea is, I think we're gravitating towards section. In the garden, I mean, it's fairly, so can I suggest an amendment to the motion on the floor that it be renamed Dorothy J. Needles Heritage Section? Does that make sense?
okay.
And that the bylaw be amended accordingly?
Okay. And, are we?
It's a section of the pollinator garden.
Tim's not too anxious on that one.
Is there a seconder to a motion to, or a mover to the second, and to second? That's Councillor Capes moves, seconded by Councillor Manklow, to redescribe it as a section, both in the motion and the enacting bylaw. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Oh,
Just to be
sorry.
clear here, Your Worship, that was an amendment to the standing resolution. I'm saying that was a resolution to amend the resolution
Well, there
on
was
the
a
floor,
motion on
was
the
it not?
floor to
Or was
enter
that-
into a
Or
bylaw.
did Councillor Capes, did you just agree to amend your resolution? Because you just seconded that.
So it's a-
But you
it's a-
moved the first one.
That's right. So it's a friendly amendment, I
Yeah.
think, to the original.
So for confirmation, the
Yeah.
original motion, moved by Councillor Capes, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix, is that it be named the Dorothy J. Needles Heritage Section, and that the bylaw be accordingly amended.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any opposition?
I have no recollection at all of seconding that motion.
And that's carried.
The issue of, do we have carte blanche to go ahead and purchase suitable plants for that then? And some
Well, I think that's up to the
funding?
pollinator garden,
5 minutes.
you know.
Okay.
So we have one more matter that is of interest to the Heritage Committee in particular, and it is item number 5 on the bylaws section, and it is a request of a resident to be removed from the registry. And Fred, I'm going to let you tee this up, and I can speak to it as well and put it into context for you.
So we received a formal objection to a property being listed on the Municipal Heritage Registry. The Act permits that these objections can be received at any time. Council can then weigh in on this. In this particular case, the property owner is claiming that they're having problems securing a mortgage with their preferred vendor. This was confirmed by the property owner's mortgage broker. As put in my report, I've also weighed into my recommendation that council accept this objection and remove the property. The fact that the province is blowing this list up, right? So any property on this list currently automatically is removed come January 1st, 2025, unless that property is designated. And then once those properties are removed between now and 2025, they cannot be relisted prior to January 1, 2030. So whether council makes this decision now or not, it's made for them come 2025.
So Deputy Mayor, I'm going as fast as I can. So I'm going to read the motion, ask for a mover and seconder, and I have a few words to say about it as well, that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to amend Bylaw 2012-19 Heritage Register to remove 994192 Mono-Adjala Townline. Do I have a mover for that? Deputy Mayor, and seconded by Councillor Mangtalo. Further discussion, I should just indicate that the broker contacted me to indicate that the property owner has had a mortgage on this property for 10 years, has made every single payment, and it's coming up for renewal, and that they were told that they could not renew it as long as it was on the registry. I spent about half a day going back and forth with the broker and also the broker's person that the broker reports to. They understand, we think, the difference between being on the register versus being designated. They don't care. They are absolutely unwilling to budge from their position that the property has to come off the registry in order to be in order to get this mortgage. Now, is the mortgage grantor an outlier? I don't know, but I think it's possible. Then there are insurance companies that are outliers and do not insure. Then there are other ones that do, but I don't think we have much of a choice here. They would not even accept a letter from myself and Fred indicating that we had received a request and that we were going to deal with it at this council meeting. That wasn't good enough for them. They want a copy of the subsequent bylaw if this motion passes. So that's the quandary we're in. Elaine?
I find this very difficult to accept in that the Ontario Heritage Municipal or Heritage Act, I don't think people can, I just don't, I question the validity of them saying they won't mortgage a property if it's listed. My other concern is that I don't believe we took this to the Heritage Committee to let them know that this request came in. Because I think if we have a process that the Heritage Committee creates the listing and brings forward properties, this could very well have been, I'm not saying it is, it could very well have been a situation where this property was on our list to designate next. And therefore, you know, now we're circumventing the process for listing, designating, and bringing that back to council. So I was a little surprised to see this come up because I didn't know that we had reviewed this at the Heritage Committee. And so process is something, and I do agree, yes, if it's not designated in the next year and a half, then it comes off the list by the province. I get that. But it could have been one of those properties that we wanted to designate. So I want to talk about the process and
Well,
understand why we couldn't take that to Heritage.
Unfortunately, time didn't permit that. The mortgage is due. I mean, in terms of putting a new mortgage on the property, it has to happen ASAP for a couple of reasons. Number one, the 10-year mortgage is done. Number two, interest rates may go up. And I would agree, and you know, if we had the luxury of time on this, it would go to the committee. We'd try and re-educate the mortgage broker and the financial institution and hope they change their mind. But as I say, I was originally told, give us a comfort letter, which basically describes how this process works, and Mr. Simpson worked on this, and it ably describes the difference between being on the register versus being designated. And word came back, no, that's not good enough. So we're dealing with maybe an outlier in terms of the financial institution, but I don't see us having a choice. And as I say, the timelines are such that we don't have the luxury in this instance. Maybe in others, but not in this one. Fred?
And being removed from the registry does not inhibit the Heritage Committee from recommending that the property be designated.
Yeah. Okay, well, if you could come forward to the mic, sorry.
All right, first of all, that property has been...
Your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Barbara Daplis, and I chair the Mono-Heritage Committee. First of all, it should have gone initially to the Heritage Committee. They have had the letter since January that the property was designated. Also, I checked previous bylaws. Apparently, this property was listed in 2012, which is quite a few years ago. And for the sense of urgency, I know the Bank of Canada has kept the lending rates at a certain amount, so I don't think their sense of urgency is as great as it should be. I drove by the property yesterday afternoon, and not only it's quite a nice Gothic with gingerbread, it has been designated by LACAC, the previous LACAC, and they have a plaque on their front lawn. We haven't had a chance to discuss this at the committee, and I would...
Well, it was the old name for...
Oh, that's local architecture, and
Yeah, they used to do the designations.
it's no longer in existence. But we haven't had the opportunity to discuss this at the committee, and I think that we have a meeting on this Monday night coming up, and I could probably add it to under new business, and we had had the opportunity, which then we could bring it back to council. But I find the fact that they can't get a mortgage on this questionable, and I did send an email to Mr. Simpson letting him know that. So with that in mind, could you please defer this to the next meeting of the Heritage Committee?
Yeah.
But as I understand what our clerk just told us, we could pass this and then it's delisted. You can still have your meeting and talk about designation. It doesn't actually stop you from doing that. Am I correct, Elaine?
Well, we could do what we've been allowed to do as a forced designation, but I don't see any merit in that. I think we're setting a precedent here. I really do, because people should not be coming to the mayor or to the clerk suggesting that their property be delisted or removed from the registry based on a mortgage. The only reason I see something being removed is if it doesn't fall under the categories that are set out by the Ontario Heritage Act. You can't really make a decision based on economics on this one, I don't think.
We've already set the precedent of removal of a property because they couldn't get insurance. That's not dissimilar to this.
And yet we've had, since then, I've managed to pull down a report from the Ontario Insurance Company that says, in contrary to that they'll just have to go to another insurance company. And I suspect that it just doesn't hold water. I'm sorry.
So just to go back, it has an ACLAC posted sign on it. So it was designated back.
Way back when, it has a LACAC, which is before us,
Yeah.
on the property.
So where does that fall if it was LACAC designated and now, does that not just get covered by the Ontario Heritage designation?
So
Thank you.
I think we need to make the distinction, because we're using the same term for two very, very different things. The designation we're referring to is under the Ontario Heritage Act. LACAC, of course, preceded that and is not the term designation as defined currently.
So what does that mean then? Any LACAC
Barbara, do you want to expand
designated
on that?
home?
I'm not certain. I think it just, recognizes that there's a property of interest or significance to the province of Ontario.
To the province or to the municipality?
Let me go back. I believe LACAC was under the Ontario Municipal Board at one point.
My understanding, and it could do with further research, is that that was within the municipality. That was for the lack of a better word at the moment, designation by the municipality, and did not carry any provincial legislation authority with it.
And so then, asking the question, if as a municipality we have already designated as an important heritage site, it's been mortgaged as such for the last, since 2012, did you say?
Bylaw. It was listed in 2012. It was
But when did the
identified.
LACAC?
So, oh, God, it goes back before that.
My home was designated, quote unquote, under LACAC, which I think does have an anchor somewhere in provincial legislation. It isn't simply the creation of the town. Most of the structures in the photographs taken by George Boak outside here, they were all LACAC designations.
So
it's kind of moot.
Does it
I don't
require more-
understand it.
does it require, I would like it to go to the Heritage Committee on Monday night.
Can I ask a question? Does anybody know, what's the exact timing of when this mortgage has to be renewed? Like, if it's a month from now,
My understanding was that it was pending within a couple of weeks at most. They were concerned about the timing of our meeting today. They were concerned about the possibility of interest rates going up. They haven't, at least. But it was described to me as something that the lending institution was being absolutely fussy and unreasonable about. And as I say, we tried to give them a letter and they wouldn't accept it. So the only thing that they'll look at for purposes of writing a new mortgage is the removal from the registry. I don't think they keyed on the fact of the LACAC aspect of it. They simply did their research, found it on the registry, and decided it should not be mortgaged.
can I ask a follow-up question? Oh, Fred?
So again, I just want to point out that if council removes this from the registry, the only impact is applying for a demolition permit, which may not be, there's no sign that that's imminent if the person's remortgaging. And if the Heritage Committee wants to then pursue further investigation that may lead to a recommendation to designate, the committee can proceed with that as they see fit.
Okay. I know you'd like to see us put it to the committee and then come back to council, but this was described to me as a matter of some urgency. The property owner was frustrated as anything. The mortgage broker was beyond herself in terms of frustration. For whatever reason, they want to deal with this particular financial institution that has taken this position. I suggested, why don't you go to a different financial institution, just like, you know, people have gone to different insurers when they've run into this issue, and for whatever reason, they do not want to, and or can't. One or the other. I'm not certain which it is. But my view is that we should process this, and if the committee wants to investigate for purposes of designation, I mean, by all means, that's what we hope you're doing with key properties in the town pending the demolition of the registry itself.
Thank you.
So what is the wish of council? Do we have a motion on the floor? I think we do. We do.
I think we should just, I hear everything you're saying. I think we should send it back to the Heritage Committee.
Sorry? Send it.
I think we should let the Heritage Committee review this next week.
Well,
I understand the problem that you're talking about, John. These are somewhat self-made problems. You don't want to go to another mortgage broker, you know.
Well, I don't think we can sort of tell them what to do in terms of who they borrow money from.
But they've got their options to do many different things, as we know.
Well, I'm not going to be one to tell them that they should be dealing with a different lender. That's my view.
No, you don't need to, but that's one of the
But
options.
effectively, that is what we're doing by delaying this and sending it back to the committee, and probably coming back with a result not dissimilar to what we're prepared to do today. Fred?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the mayor on this, Ralph, because we can delist it. The committee can have a meeting anytime in the next year or year and a half and come up with a recommendation to designate it. By then, they've got their 10-year mortgage, you know, and so there's no harm in it.
You're right. In fact, the committee can designate it any time, not the next year and a half. They can designate it. It's off the list.
Okay, I thought it would be on the list, but whatever. We can unlist it today with really no harm to the process of designation.
That is my understanding.
So let's go
Fred?
ahead.
Yep.
Any further comments before I call the vote? Elaine, you look like you're going to hit me.
No, I think we need to do some further research about the Heritage Act and what insurance companies, mortgage companies can do within that, because it defeats the whole act. So I'm not happy about these kinds of things, but anyway.
Nobody is. Nobody is. And Fred?
So if you'll recall, Your Worship, when this came up with the previous property earlier this year, I spoke to the provincial financial services regulator, and the regulator made it very clear to me that at that time it was insurance companies, but they also regulate clearly, you know, others depending on, well, the financial may be federal, but, and it was up to each individual company to determine their own criteria, and that the regulator wasn't considering or pursuing this as a violation of any of their rules, regulations, or legislation. An individual property owner does have the option to file a complaint, but it has to come from the first party. Couldn't come third party through the municipality.
And of course, filing a complaint probably guarantees that they're not going to get a dime out of the institution that they're dealing with.
The person I spoke to did say that institutions take formal complaints through their organization very seriously. Now, that was, again, insurance companies, not financial institutions, They're federally regulated, but nonetheless.
Well, you know, I want, I've said this before, I want people on the registry and people who are designated to see this as a good news thing and as a positive thing. I don't particularly like it when we're in a situation due to a third party that all of a sudden we're making this a controversy when it really shouldn't be one. So I'm going to call the vote, and those in favor of the motion, those opposed to the motion, and the motion is it fails. And I will be in touch with the property owner.
Is the registry committee going to look at this?
Well, I'm assuming that they're going to because they've asked us to, and on the basis of that.
Barbara, are you aware of the discussions going on now? We're assuming that the mayor said he's assuming that the Heritage Committee will look at this on next meeting.
Okay, let's go in camera. I do, and I have one. 5-minute break.
Okay, so Andrew, we're going to go into a short recess. When we come back, we'll do the going in camera motions.
Okay, we are back live.
Thank you. I have a motion that council move into a closed meeting pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended at 10:56 a.m. for number 1, Aragon Residential Development OLT hearing, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And the second item is the second line draft plan of subdivision, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Nix, seconded by Councillor Capes. Any opposition? No opposition. If we can go in camera, Andrew.
We are back live.
Thank you, and I have a motion that we rise from an in-camera session at 12:04 p.m., and that council accept the advice from the town solicitor and direct town staff and the town solicitor to proceed accordingly. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Capes, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Any opposition? That is carried. I'm going to suggest, given the time limitations that we have today, that we deal with one more item, unless staff has something more urgent. We have item number 7, Human Resources Hiring Policy. And I have there's a memo that goes along with this that deals with maybe what is a bit of a problematic wording in our policy, but I think this will assist in terms of the situation that we're facing. A motion that we approve an internal posting only for the currently vacant department head position. Do I have a motion? Councillor Capes moves, seconded by Councillor Manctalo. Any discussion or questions about this? Any opposed? That motion is carried. I'm going to suggest that we deal with Schedule A at our next meeting, and that if staff have any, Fred?
So, Your Worship, we are going to need a resolution to defer all other business. We can't just drop things off the agenda that were posted. Sorry, but...
Oh, that's too much fun. Okay, so we have, yeah, Councillor Capes?
So a question, can we put short-term accommodations on the outstanding business, unfinished business list? I'd be happy to make a motion to do that, because we didn't talk about that, and that's in our package.
Do we have a seconder to
Oh,
add
Mr.
that?
Mayor?
Yes.
Regarding Councillor Scape's comment, I have scheduled our account manager from MPAC tentatively to come to next council's meeting to basically speak to the class that you're referring to, the short-term rentals.
Oh, perfect.
Excellent.
So if council wants our rep to come to council, I have her booked.
Okay, I think that's great. So do
And
we
she'll
need
be
to
able
put it
to
on?
talk the process and having that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
That's great.
Let's put it on the agenda for the
great.
next meeting.
I would just recommend that anything that hasn't been addressed be
Forwarded to the next agenda?
deferred to the next meeting.
Correct.
So a resolution
Okay.
to that effect.
So Deputy Mayor Nix moves, seconded by Councillor Capes. Any opposed? I promise to have everybody out by noon.
Who do we say
You're
next?
doing a great job.
Anyways, I have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the town of Mono in session 17, 2023, held on the 12th of September 2023, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover? Councillor Capes, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Any opposition? Seeing none, motion is carried. I have an adjournment motion that this meeting stands adjourned at 12:08 p.m. Mover is Councillor Manctalo, seconded by Councillor Capes. Any opposition? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, everyone.
Well done.